Well, good morning, gang. It is Nutrition Tips Tuesday. And as I said, every time I introduce Jamie, I really enjoy just going left field, right field, and have a little bit of focus on just me, Proprietary Limited. And I must say that with my family has benefited enormously, not just from the nutrition components, but the way we do things. We do this every week. We're actually going to fortnightly because we're going to give Jamie a bit of a break. We're going to introduce Jackson. But what we're going to continue to do while Jamie has the time is give you tools, not just ideas, but tools that you can actually put into practice. For instance, Jamie has been showing us just over the last few weeks, some of the tools and how much sugar is actually in food. He's also showed us how to eat and when and how to reduce our alcohol intake quite easily without actually being rude. We've also learned about things that are in your food that you have no idea is detrimental to you. Healthy breakfast. Well, we found out last week that a healthy breakfast is a really unhealthy breakfast. So with no further ado, Jamie, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Steve, it's absolutely a pleasure, and hello to all the SAC members and everybody watching on YouTube and things like that. And later on, I'm going to share what's in this little package, but that's the goodies. We'll get to that later. Now, Steve, I want to, and firstly, congratulations to you, because here you are. You've been sharing the lessons that you've been learning. We've been learning together, because you're a coach and a teacher, and many of us are coaches and teachers. And when you learn something with the intent of teaching somebody else, you actually learn it better. And I think you taught me that. And here you are sharing the lessons you learned. And I bet you learned those lessons better because you're intending to share those with other people. So good on you.
Spot on. And I'm actually fascinated with what we put in our mouths and what we drink, and have been for years, right from my sporting days. But the way you actually explain it makes it really transferable. And I get excited because I'm now confident that I'm talking about something that's come from an expert. So I really, I'm enjoying it, and I take copious notes, and implementation is the key, isn't it, mate?
Yeah. Well, I sort of don't regard myself as an expert as much as a librarian, because I try to gather the experts. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a dietitian or a scientist or anything like that, but trying to learn, from what works as a librarian. You've got a whole lot of good books out there, and to share the information, like a curator, to share, really good quality information. And luckily, because we've got an organization with thousands of members who are at the coalface trying to lose weight and gain health, we learn an incredible amount of data of what works and what doesn't work through them, through their struggles, from their lessons and their inspiration. So, and their questions as well, I suppose I'm lucky to be in that unique opportunity to be passionate about something, to learn, but also learn from our students as you learn from your students.
Yeah, every day. You're absolutely spot on.
Yeah.
I do a presentation, I teach somebody, and they come back with just, how about we try it this way? And, it all triggers perfectly. I said, wow, that's incredible. When you say, can I borrow that?
Well, absolutely. I'm doing that all the time. I've got no ego in this. Now, I've got a big question for you and everybody watching. What does Obama, and you might recall Steve Jobs, from Apple Computer, and Mark Zuckerberg from Facebook, what did they have in common? Can you think of one behavior that they had in common? Or when you see images of them, what they look like, what one thing did they have in common?
A public figure?
Well, of course they were public figures, but you know what? I don't know if you remember, Steve Jobs with his Apple presentations, with the keynote addresses and things like that. It was what they wore. He wore jeans and like a turtleneck long sleeve T-shirt. Mark Zuckerberg, he typically just wears a grey T-shirt. Now, recently he has been seen in suits and things like that, but that suit looks like it's the one suit. He's only got one suit. But typically, when you see Mark Zuckerberg, you do a Google search on Mark Zuckerberg, And you'll see hundreds, if not thousands, of photos of him just wearing the exact same T-shirt. And it was said that President Obama, was faced with an incredible onslaught of conflict and decisions he had to make every day. He said to his wife or his team, "Look, I want you to lay out the suit. That is not something I want to think about." So basically, what they were doing and what we can do is to protect ourselves from decision fatigue. Because and I've got a lot of notes and a lot of things I want to share with everybody this morning about how decision fatigue can get in the way of you creating your future self. And I've learned an incredible amount, and I do want to recommend a fantastic book, which is Personality is Not Permanent. Absolutely fantastic book. And I'm going to share some from that chapter that I've just been reading and you get a great book and you say, I'm going to read this as soon as I finish. I'm going to read it again, or as soon as I finish this chapter, I'm going to read it again. Or you end up you just got red lines and yellow highlighters and stuff like that, all throughout it. As a matter of fact, when I often lend a book to people, I say, look, and here's a yellow highlighter or a red pen. I want you to feel free to underline stuff because that'll just add value to my book.
That's great. And I must say, I'm like you. I'm a slow reader. So what I do is I always try to get the audio book, but I get the book as well. And what I do is I listen to the book or go through the book first just to get, let's say, the first coat of paint. However, we teach the guys in the SAC, and I have done for the last 20 plus years. You're better off reading one book 20, 30, 300 times than having 300 books, because I see these people with massive amounts of books. And my question is, how many times have you read that one?
Absolutely.
And usually once, or I'm halfway through it. And that's just taking up space. And it doesn't, there's no outcome. So I'm better off going back. I read the E-Myth Revisited. Look, I go through the processes on the summaries, and I do them 6 times. I actually read the book again and went through the audio book just about a week ago. And you know what? It was a completely different story.
Oh, yeah, because I've got a saying, when the student is ready, the book is waiting, that the message within that book is waiting, because at first read, you just weren't ready for it, And it's the same when it comes to diet and nutrition. A lot of people just aren't ready for it. But when they're ready for it, as a matter of fact, I've got some books in my library, particularly in regards to sugar, that written in their 50s and 60s, they're collector's pieces. And it's incredible to go back and read how visionary people were, But this decision fatigue, and particularly, it's interesting you say that because we've got so much distraction, things get in our way. And a lot of people, because of streaming internet and social media, work like that, they lose the ability to read a book. They simply lose the ability to allocate the time and the attention to switch everything off, to go for what's called strategic ignorance, getting rid of all the things that are getting in the way of your goals. So intelligent, strategic ignorance to achieve their future self. So just imagine, you visited our apartment, it is Unit 16, right next door is Unit 15. These apartments are identical. But guess what's not identical? The foods that we have in our house to choose from. Let's say that identical apartment right next door to us is full of cookies and cakes and sweet things and sweet drinks and, lovely thing that mum made or grandmother made or auntie made or whatever like that. Huge temptations, but the apartments are identical. But I choose to be strategically ignorant. Those things are not in our apartment. They're not in our world. They're not in our life. So I actually don't have to go through decision fatigue. Will I have it? Won't I have it? Will I have it? Won't I have it? Because even just driving through the city, Micheline, she's driving, along the highway there. She's making micro decisions all the time. And we can end up throughout the day, we are so fatigued, we pull in for petrol, and they say, "Oh, look, buy petrol, and you get two of these bars for $1 or whatever like that," and you say, "Screw it," because you're fatigued, and because willpower is an exhaustible muscle. So what we need to do,
That's gold, Jamie. Willpower is exhaustible. Now, I think everyone thinks they're robots. I
you
really
know,
hope everyone's listening, guys. I hope you're listening to this. It's about, I think, the analogy of President Obama saying, "Hey, that's a suit I don't want to have to think about it. I just want to put it on." And I know some of you are like that. Some of the guys in the SAC, they go say, "Well, I don't want to think about that stuff. I just want to do it." And but I think that's a big rock. Willpower is inexhaustible. So in other words, you can be chipped away, and all of a sudden, oh, you just give in. And I
right
think
now, listen, I bet you, you don't think about, particularly during the week, will I put on a suit or won't I put on a suit? You
no.
just put on the suit.
And
It's
they're
not
all
that.
like about there. They're all in the cupboard, and they go, bang, out it comes, and we've got the shirt ready to rock and roll.
Well, so that's one little thing that you don't have to worry about,
No,
which is fantastic. So you've organized your environment just as we can organize our food environment, so that
that's
it's going to give you your future self, what you want to achieve. And as a matter of fact, you probably got rid of all the choices of stuff that you don't want to wear.
yeah.
And so that was it. So it's made life easy for you, and because when we've got unlimited options, we have unlimited choices. We've got to make more decision that leads to decision fatigue, and you can get stuck in a negative cycle, and FOMO, fear of missing out. Did I make the right decision, the wrong decision? And then that leads to indecision. So, if you do a Google search for, let's say, diet, weight loss, it will be millions of things that come up in that search engine. So we've got way too much choice.
Absolutely right. I mean, I remember when I went down I know how clever you are in marketing. You've been reading marketing books for 20, 30 years. But I went down the road and started learning digitization about 4.5, 5 years ago. And then I started getting different inputs. And you know what? I just got in complete overwhelm. And it was, you said decision fatigue.
Fatigue.
I was making all these decisions based on all these experts, and I'm going, good grief, I just want one of them to work.
Absolutely. And you don't have to make the best decision, just make a decision. I mean, just on our learning management system, I just made a commitment, bang. I mean, there's plenty of other good ones out there, plenty of other people have got their thing, ideas on diet and stuff like that. But I often reflect on, did my mother or my grandmother or my great-grandmother have less dietary choices than I have now? And they lived a long, long life. And they had a lot less choices. But, they really made good with, what they had, which is, a lot of the foods in the middle of, Coles and Woolies, they wouldn't recognise it as food. That's what is all this plastic and paper wrapped stuff with barcodes on them, and they just wouldn't have recognised it.
Well, so we just keep it simple. I think you said a little while ago, Jamie, and I loved it. It was like abstinence is much, much more effective than moderation. And if you just don't bring the fizzy pop home, don't bring the Coca-Cola, the Pepsi, you don't bring the chips home, just don't buy it. If it's not in the cupboard, you can't do it. And I was actually, a friend of mine is a leader in a company, a business, is a charity called AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, and
Right.
he sits there and he listens to people and so forth. And he said that when someone has an addiction, all they need to understand is they just need a community to say it's okay to have an addiction. And secondly, just don't have it in the house.
There you go. Managing the environment, which is strategic ignorance. Okay, so I'm just not aware of it because it's not in my environment. So I've actually engineered my environment. Because you have to ask yourself: do the choices that you're confronting yourself with on a daily basis, are they adding or taking away from your future self? So and if you just manage these and narrow them down to saying, everything's going to be geared towards my future self, and keep that goal of my future self. As a matter of fact, in our weight loss program, we get people to write out a positive affirmation, which is like a movie script written in the present tense of them being at their new weight and their new health and wearing their new or old clothes. Everybody's got a skinny pair of jeans in their wardrobe or something like that. And being with people or a person that's important to them at a nice place and stuff like that, hearing what those people are saying about how they're looking, and just enjoying the moment and the emotion, So really scripting out their future self, and it can be hugely empowering.
Oh, look,
Hugely.
what you've said there is very powerful in general. I did a program many, many years ago, and it's been infiltrated. It's in most programs I've done with PD or business development, is actually then to picture yourself in the future. What are you doing? Who you are? What have you become? What do you look like? And actually draw the picture and draw it. Don't
Right, physically draw it, yeah.
physically draw it. And whether it's with family, palm trees, whatever.
Yeah.
And it's quite funny. It's quite spooky, really, because when you actually draw it and you actually create it, don't just do the vision board. The manifestation that it creates is quite magnificent.
Interesting, very interesting. And my son Ryan, he's a fantastic drawer. So anyway, I'm going to refer to some notes. There's a few things I just wanted to share with you that, like, here's a lovely quote. Choice overloads makes you question every decision even before you make it, leaving you in a perpetual state of FOMO, constant stress, questioning your decision making, and the best decision makers actually purposely avoid it. They've got teams of people that they tell their team, their filters, this is what I'm interested in. If anything wants to get my attention, if it's not that, you don't let it get to me.
I love it. Would you love
Just
someone like that?
absolutely. They are just, like Peter Diamandis, the billionaire, tech investor guru. He's got a team of people that are constantly looking out for what is of interest to him, but protecting him from stuff that he has no interest in whatsoever. And you can do exactly the same with food, so that we provide people with a shopping list of things that are on the plan that are going to support, it's going to support their goals. But so there's nothing on that shopping list that is not going to support their goals. So absolutely crucial. And
On that shopping list they get when they, let's say with Keto Fitness or with
yeah,
Diet Flex or with Healthy Inspirations, they're your three companies. You're saying that there's all the decisions being made for them. Just pick of the stuff that's good for you. It's all good for you. Just pick one out. So it reduces let's say the conversation. Is that okay? Number one. Oh, I better go and check. And then, oh, gee whiz, I might buy it. It might be wrong. Well, I won't buy it at all. You're saying that the list is all the good stuff. Just pick a few from the good list.
absolutely. As a matter of fact, so here's a little, nutrition tip or weight loss tip. You can write out your shopping list and you give it to somebody else to go buy you that. Now, they're not going, because they're spending your money with your credit card, they're not going to add stuff that's not on your shopping list. But if you go shopping, particularly if you go at the end of the day when you've got decision fatigue, and let's say your blood sugar's down a little bit and you're a little bit tired, you see some temptation, oh, it's just a little one, I deserve it. But if you give that shopping list to somebody else, and a lot of people take advantage of by subscription pre-ordered fresh veggies and fruits. Fantastic concept. You could have pre-ordered meat, pre-ordered fish, so where it just comes to you and you don't have the decision bombarding you at the supermarket. Talk about bombarding, go fill up with petrol anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Try and buy some milk.
That's right.
What is that? 12 to 15 different types of milk. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I just want
goat's milk and all the rest of it. It's like a 20 plus.
Yeah, so and it's the same with cream. As you know, a really good nutrition tip if you want white coffee and you're on a low carb diet and or you're lactose intolerant. A dash of cream and black coffee really sits well on the stomach, and it's low carb and pretty well lactose free. So that's an interesting one for people to try, as long as you don't drown the coffee with too much water. So, half the way up the cup or two-thirds up the cup. It's a pretty interesting tip. A lot of people, their stomachs are so much more comfortable by having a long black or a medium long black, like half long black with a dash of cream.
Oh, by the way, on coffee, I went down Victoria Road on the weekend, and I went to that old coffee shop.
Barcalusi. It just came to me from last week. I was trying to remember.
Just want to digress. Last week, guys, we were talking about some little fun things about our life together when we were with BE, and I actually went to Victoria Road and went to that coffee shop. And anyway, digressed.
Barcalusi. But you know what? I'm glad you raised that, because it's interesting to pay attention to businesses that have been around for decades, iconic businesses. What is it about those businesses that make them successful where the restaurant next door is empty? It's good to look for those success factors. Success leaves clues, doesn't it?
Yeah, look at it. As you know, Kerry and Rowena McAvoy always ask me this question.
And g'day, Kerry. G'day, Ro.
They'll be seeing this.
Good.
They say, Dr. J, how long have you been doing what you're doing? I said, gee whiz, it's 30 plus years now. I said, yeah, we're doing the same. He said, success and sustainability is a critical measurement tool for someone that's making a difference. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was quite interesting that they put into that concept, the people that stay the test of time, that have gone through and made it their life work. I mean, you've been talking about nutrition ever since after you went through the group fitness and aerobics component, be a champion there, had your clubs. All you've been doing now has been concentrating on nutrition and health and wellness all your life. And that creates that let's say, experience. And as you correctly said at the beginning, the experience is incredibly valuable. Sure, there's lots of experts out there, but experience sometimes is much more effective. You've been in the trenches. That's just like Kerry and Rowie, and I just thought that was quite profound.
Persistence. Well, let me share something with you, because this came from my mother's kitchen wall. I was going to share this later on. Can you see that?
Yeah, sure can.
Persistence. Nothing in the world can take the place of persistence. Talent will not. Nothing is more common than unsuccessful men or women of talent. Genius will not. Unrewarded genius is almost a proverb. Education will not. The world is full of educated derelicts. Persistence and determination alone are omnipotent or omnipotent, whatever you prefer. So there you go. That's from my mother's kitchen wall.
I love it. Discipline, persistence, having those words. It's easy. A lot of people say them, don't they, Jamie? But sometimes they get knocked off their perch. And that's sometimes with food too, isn't it? They're going along really well. Something comes unstuck. As it goes to, as Jeff Jowett says, food for fuel, not for comfort.
Absolutely.
And it's easy to fall off the apple cart. That's why a diet flex or a keto fitness coach or a program or just a health club like a Healthy Inspirations, or going to some of the others like Vision and Plus Fitness, and just being around a community, it does make a difference. And if they're talking the same language.
Absolutely. You surround yourself by like-minded people. And if you get thirsty, look, here we go. Of course, you can have a lovely sparkling mineral water like Pellegrino with a lemon or limes or, things like that. And these are very low-carb fruits, and, squeeze those. Or, gee, I bought Ellen this super expensive French fruit squeezer, and she didn't use it for a year, but now she uses it every day. So
now we've got the right use for it now. Now we know what to do.
That's right. Yeah. And, listen, so I did promise, and it's good to make a bit of a hobby out of things that are going to help you achieve your goals. And in the past, we've talked about prioritizing protein. Well, here's Ellen's made some high protein little muffin things. That's
Put it in
what we
front of
did.
you, Jamie, so it doesn't
Oh,
go.
sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, I beg your pardon. So
Oh yeah, there you go.
that's like a sort of chocolate muffin, and there is a another one with some special cream on top, and with a sprinkle of cinnamon, things like that. And definitely we'll find a way to share those recipes with everybody. And they're made with protein powder, and they're absolutely delicious, and they're moist and beautiful. So that you can that mid morning and mid afternoon snack, you can have something that you made from your own hand yourself. You learn to use that oven. When we bought this apartment, the person who had owned it, and renovated like 3 or 4 years before, he had never used his oven. He had never used his oven. He simply didn't cook.
Wow. I think you said the other day, the more time you spend in the kitchen, sometimes that can be the healthier you'll become.
Absolutely. And having rituals in life, so that we do spend some time, or time to, if you're living with your family, or with your spouse, your husband, your wife, that time in the kitchen where you could have a bit of a chat, cooking, not treading on each other's toes. You got to be watch out for that. But that can just be a nice daily ritual. And if you bring up kids, teaching them food habits. Oh, this is how we make something. Kids have become more interested in vegetables if they grow vegetables, and lots of the kindergarten schools now have vegetable gardens, and those kids who didn't want to eat vegetables suddenly become more interested in vegetables. So, um,
That's interesting you said that,
yeah.
Jamie. If people in general, if you start growing some vegetables, you want to learn more about them. And I'm just reflecting on my family. My sister lives in the country in a beautiful place out there, and she started a number of years ago growing her own vegetables. She's very proud of those vegetables, and she has chickens out there. She has a big trucking company, but she loves animals, and they have these eggs that they go and pick up every morning, and they've got the vegetables. And when I go out there, she just cooks it straight. She cleans it obviously, and then just and I tell you, I'm not word of a lie. It tastes different. It is different
Yeah.
tasting egg. It's a different taste. She doesn't put anything on it, mind you. It's just completely fresh. And she used to just go to the supermarket, but now she actually does everything from her garden. But I must say that the food is so much more will just taste different. I'm sure it has more
And,
nutrition.
Steve, during the week, you actually sent me a very interesting question, which was, are you what we eat, or are we what they ate? So that, for instance, the chickens that, who's that? Your sister? Who was
Sister.
it? Your
Yeah,
sister.
yeah.
You know, um, if she just fed them chicken feed versus a whole lot of different scraps, and they're eating insects and stuff like that, does that impact the quality of the meat and the makeup of the fat within the chicken? Because all meats have naturally occurring fats. But there is a big question mark, and researchers are looking at this right now as to whether we've got grass-fed beef versus grain-fed beef. Does that make a difference to the fat makeup within that animal? Pigs, for instance. They free-ranging pigs, or are they just getting grain feed or soybeans, or things like that? So I think if your sister is feeding them all the different scraps, and plus they're finding insects and stuff like that, if I had my choice, I would rather have her eggs than the battery hen eggs that are an option to buy. So
Because she's actually she rescues animals. That's all she does. She won't eat them. But the funny thing about it is she'll quite happily go and get the eggs and vegetables. But she actually asked me a question about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and we are talking about meat. I'm glad we're talking about it, because it reminded me all the chemicals that are put into the feed of animals and so forth, all the stuff that goes on to the fruits and stuff that gets sprayed. When you cook meat and so forth, does that take out the chemicals that I've been, and she was saying, I'm wondering if all of those steroids and so forth that go into the chickens, that they become a chicken in 3 or 4 days, do they come out in the food, in the cooking? And secondly, is washing enough when it comes to vegetables that you buy from the supermarket? So those 2 questions that she had. So
Well, firstly, Steve, and I'll repeat this time and time again, I know a lot about nutrition, but I don't know everything, and I'm definitely not an expert. So I don't know if I have a really super clear answer to that question. Although, I think if you can buy, whenever you have a choice, if you can buy free-ranging, animals, be it free-range eggs, free-range chickens, wild caught fish versus farm fish, grass-fed beef versus, all sheep, I believe, is free range, then they are better choices. And also I believe, I do believe in eating meat, fish and eggs and things like that, but I prefer to eat from animals that had a happy life. They were free range. And my wife and the siblings own a farm, and they run cattle, and those cattle have a happy life. They are loved, throughout their lives, and so that's the choice when it comes to veg. And also you did mention cooking, so there's definitely evidence that maybe cooking at a lower heat may be preferable. Not cooking it over a flame, might be a good idea. Whether flaming meats, might increase by a certain percentage, a carcinogenic factor. So, definitely I choose to, on my barbecue, we've got a plate and we use our barbecue pretty well, at least 5 nights of the week.
wow.
Really, if not 7 nights of the week. And in Queensland, it's not so much to enjoy the great outdoors, but to stop heating up indoors. Stop. Really, that's one of the reasons.
Go
But
inside because if you heat it up, if you cook your stuff inside, you've got to put the air conditioning on higher.
absolutely, and so, that's so it is more sort of energy efficient, and I suppose we're dividing our spaces, darling. You go do this, I'll do that. We're not treading out on each other's space and
That's
stuff like
great.
that.
All
Yeah,
right.
there's always a timing issue, when to turn on the barbecue and stuff like that, and whether with cooking vegetables, in the past we have spoken about the protective proteins and elements within fruits and vegetables to protect them from predators. And sometimes they can become anti-nutrients to humans. And we were talking about things like lectins,
Yeah.
oxalates, nightshades,
Shades.
FODMAPs, um, gluten and things like that. So there's a whole lot of nutrients in foods that, and particularly when it comes to lectins in foods, that the body absorbs the nutrients better without side effects if they're cooked. So there's a whole lot of plant foods that are absolutely better, eaten when they're cooked. And as we said in the past, Italians learned a long, long time ago that, they can eliminate the anti-nutrients in tomatoes by peeling the tomatoes and removing the seeds. Now, I'm not too sure exactly how they do that, but you could Google it, I'm sure. And so they've removed those anti-nutrients.
Well, getting at that, it sounds more and more important to make sure that we don't go into those choice overwhelms and overloads, and have a list of things that make it easy for us. That's what DietFlex does, and that's what also with Keto Fitness and what your coaches have been doing for a number of years now. And they say, well, hang on, stop overthinking. There's all these different things you should be doing.
Oh, sure. And
Here's a
and
model.
sometimes in life, and this definitely applies to nutrition, sometimes you can make one big decision which covers a lot of little decisions.
Mm.
So one, yep, I'm just going to do that program. I'm going to use their shopping list. I'm only going to buy the fresh foods on that shopping list. I'm just not going to entertain anything else. And so we've made one big decision which covers a lot of little decisions, and
Yeah.
that can help reduce decision fatigue. Because whether it's a big decision or a little decision, I know you bought properties, you bought cars, they're big decisions, but sometimes we fuss over the little decisions just as much as the big decisions.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, and
I have a little bit of a thing that comes with those big decisions, which are what are you buying it for? Is it for the view or the ROI? And they will say, well, if it's a view, it's going, well, it's going to, you probably pay more. If it's for an ROI, well, would you pay more? I don't know, but it makes
Absolutely.
less things to talk about.
Yeah. Now you want to shield yourself from the distractions, the enemies of your future self. So here's the saying: shield yourself from the distractions and the enemies of your future self. So if you've got a clear vision of the health that you want, the weight that you want, you really want to shield yourself from things that are going to get in the way of that. So, and decide that in advance.
What things would they shield themselves from?
Well, it could be team teammates in the office who bring a lot of crappy foods out and say, "Oh, look, I made it, these crappy cookies and cakes and stuff like that," and sharing them around and say, "Look, I really appreciate you doing that, but not near me, please."
That's
And
good. I think that's a big rock. I mean, just people that are continually unhappy, usually around some toxic people. And what we're saying here, if your teams aren't toxic, but they're actually bringing toxic things along, just say, well, don't hang out with them, or just don't be around them when they're eating their cakes. I mean, that's a good thing how to shield it. Don't go to the pub if you're an alcoholic. I mean,
that's right.
yeah.
That's exactly right. What's the saying? Never walk away from a negative person. Run as fast as you can.
Good. Well, that's a good, have a clear vision and making sure that you shield yourself and be mindful of it. I think
Yeah.
we hint a little while ago, but I think about 5 or 6 episodes ago, when you go to the family, a meal, and they keep saying, "Oh, have more, have more, have more," and you say, "I love it," or even just one meal, say, "I love it so much. I'd love you to put a little takeaway bag. I'll eat it later," if you don't want to say, "I don't want."
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
of course, we're confronting the value of dishonesty there, but so be it. If that's an easier, because you want the big decision that makes the little decisions easier, automatic, and irrelevant. Irrelevant. God, I'm
Okay,
sorry.
great. Yeah,
You
relevant.
know what I mean?
I
That's
know what
right.
you mean. Yeah, all good.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
because
well,
you really want to shield yourself, because there's an onslaught of things in our lives, people in our lives, social media, news, and what like that will seek to rob our time, our money, our attention, even our health. So we really need to shield ourselves from those things. Again, decide on the future self that you want.
and I think it's what you're saying here is really quite critical for the decisions we're going to make, because I think it's really quite important to find a trusted source. In other words, get the information, find a sales process, find a marketing model, find a nutrition model, whatever, where it's a trusted source. It's tried and proven, and it's had the test of time. And people have been around for a while. So that will allow you to shield yourself from other.
Uh, And let's just investigate that. That's a really good insight that you've shared. For instance, if you wanted to become wealthy, would a trusted source be somebody who inherited wealth or somebody who went from poverty to wealth? Now, I'd rather trust somebody who went from poverty to wealth. If a trusted source is somebody who's got an incredible body, they're skinny and lean and fit, but they've always been that way, compared to somebody who was really out of shape, who was carrying extra weight, but did what was necessary to get them into shape. Remember Wendy Firewood?
Yes.
Do at BE there, here she was, 58, and Steve walked into the gym one day, and Wendy was calling out, and she says, "Steve, look, I'm running. I'm on a treadmill. I'm running." And she never thought she would have the freedom of that little girl with inside her at 58, that she could lose enough weight, improve her fitness, to suddenly say, "Look at me, I'm running," and she became a personal trainer. Now, I would trust Wendy Firewood, if I was in my mid-50s, because she achieved that result for herself. And so you got, if they say, if you want to make a lot of money, don't be advised by an accountant who has less money than you.
Absolutely. I mean,
But
people that have gone through adversity and come out the other end, they're the people that had the experience. And Wendy's a classic example where she did an amazing job on herself. lost weight, became fit, and then started helping other people. It's quite inspiring. And I believe it's really critical to shield yourself from all the noise that's out there and find trusted sources, referral based opportunity, and just ask some good questions and follow a process that's it's up to date, but it's tried and proven.
Absolutely. And you've got to be wary of those saboteurs. As well-meaning as they might be, there are definitely saboteurs out there that will seek to sabotage what you're doing. Um, and so I want to get back to this concept of strategic ignorance, which is shielding yourself, from that decision fatigue. You really want to look at the little things that, oh, do I do this or that, throughout the day, and say, how can I shield myself from this? So that it's just not part of your plan, and develop preventive strategies to protect yourself from it.
Well, I think if people, well, again, we come back to a couple of sessions ago. You talk about coaches. I don't believe you can do it on your own, Jamie. Whether you want to be wealthy, whether you make a lot of sales, whether you want to run a marathon, play great football, lose weight, get stronger, bodybuild, whatever you want to do, it's not a solo warrior activity. And I think making sure that you're making the right choices, seek out people that have had the experience and work with someone and hold. And I'm big on having an accountability buddy, and someone you can celebrate with, someone can give you some tough love. But I think it's critical. And what you did with Diet Flexes, you have coaches to do that too. And we
Absolutely.
do coaching in impact training and NSA. I don't see anybody out there succeeding, evolving on their own.
Yeah, there's a desire to do it yourself, but most people, if they can have a mentor or a coach to be there, and sometimes just to be there to listen to them reflecting on the decisions they've got to make, or to expand their opportunities, or to limit their opportunities so that they make a clear choice and get on with it and hold them accountable. I mean, you hooked me up with Jason. We meet every Wednesday, and as accountability buddies, he's holding me accountable and vice versa, and we're looking for the opportunity to improve each other's lives and businesses. So it's an amazing thing to have, and you can, so I'm absolutely all for coaching. If you're paying for a professional coach, you're more likely to follow their advice, and particularly, if any personal trainers are watching this, or anybody considering personal training, don't do it on the basis that I turn up and I've got to give them $50 or $100 or whatever like that. I think you're much better off to enroll in personal training sort of like for 6 months or 12 months, and you're on direct debit so that you get paid whether I show up or not. Because let's say it's cold, you're tired, mind over mattress, and say, oh, I don't want to go to my PT session. I think I'll text them, I can't make it. And also I don't want to, I didn't go to the bank and I don't have that money in my pocket to give him. So you got this double pain of the cold, the pain of the workout, or if he's pushing you hard enough, and the pain of playing cash. So see, you've set up the systems all wrong to achieve a great result. So, you're better off to enroll in a longer term program, persistence, and to establish those habits where you're paying whether you show up or not. And that way you tend to show up because shit, I'm paying for it, I might as well show up. And you're more likely to get the result.
I agree. I think making a commitment to yourself, if you have the pain of the financial burden, you say, well, gee, I want to get value. I believe when you pay more, you stay on and you stay longer in a membership, but also you actually are utilized. I mean, I know I pay for things, and sometimes I'll stop doing it or going to it, and all of a sudden I'll go, oh, I'm paying for that. I want to go back to it, and I intentionally don't stop paying because I know that I need the knowledge or the support. And I think having that expenditure that you're going to have to pay for, I think it's really important. And people just want free stuff all the time. Most people don't even use the free stuff. So pay for
Sure.
a good coach.
Now, and also to any coaches out there, I'd say that the value of your coaching, be it a weight loss coach or a performance coach, a sports coach, is not based upon all the information you're going to give them, but actually helping that person achieve a result.
Mm.
So it's all about the result. The value is in the result and moving that person one step, at a time at their pace from where they are to where they want to get to, at the pace that they can move it, not based upon all the information you've got available, because, what I've learned about courses and coaching and things like that, a big reason for dropout is overwhelm. There's too much here for me to take advantage of, you
Yeah.
know, and eventually,
That decision fatigue comes into it again, doesn't it?
absolutely, it really is. That's a good analogy. It is absolutely decision fatigue, and so eventually that becomes too much, and so, oh look, I just can't keep up, can't do it, and our younger son Cody, was a maths tutor, other school kids in maths, and he said, when they just get behind, at year eight and versus year nine, year 10, they sometimes never catch up, and you've got to go back to the real basics, so that they don't sort of get behind and build on those real basics.
Yeah, look, I always come back down to when we were at school. If we didn't do some of the building blocks stuff and then come back to it, sometimes they would forward. And sometimes just got to go back to basics. And ever since we started training, when I was with our clubs, when we worked together, it wasn't always new stuff. It's going to consolidate the foundations, because if the foundations are strong, you can build upon it. Now, that's with food. If you understand about carbohydrate, if you understand about the importance of making sure you have protein, making sure you have adequate fluid, and making sure that you have a time period between when, some maybe fasting that you do, which where you don't eat until lunchtime. If you just have those foundations, and the same with sales, you can then build on it. Then you can give the new stuff. And Greg Hurst used to always say to me, and you know Greg very, very well. He's a great friend of
Yeah,
mine.
g'day, Greg.
Greg,
I don't just know Greg. I love Greg.
of course, we all do. And Greg used to say, hey, mate, take us back to basics all the time. He says, do the new stuff. Let me go back to basics. I love it. And he's the CEO, very large company with Nigel. And they always come in training, and he comes to me after training. He said, back to basics or whatever the case be. He said, I learned so much this time. I said, really? He said, yeah, I'm getting it. And I only done it 11 times, mate. And he just gives me a wink. And this is a man that was so articulate and incredibly clever, implementer personified. And he wanted to always go back to them and set the foundations. And he had amazing teams all around the world. And he's a great mate. And he was always an inspiration, and still is. But he always went back to basics, had set solid foundations, and then moved on. So you're spot on. Overwhelm, perfection paralysis comes into that area. People just
and FOMO, yeah.
So I think this is great, because keeping it simple, less is best, and just keeping building on the things. That's why in the SAC, we have one topic, just go over it lots and lots of times, role play, fun play, implementation. We're not doing new stuff until you're doing the stuff we've already taught you.
Absolutely. So look, you watch my hand. Now, where does that come from? It was from a famous movie, Wax On, Wax Off. Dr. Miyagi, the Karate Kid. He was teaching the basics of blocking, wax on, wax off.
Yeah.
So that's my analogy for the basics, wax on, wax off.
Now, Michelin, are you driving? Do you want to ask Jamie a question?
Jamie, I think that lesson that you've given us today has been incredible, because what I've been subconsciously doing is trying to simplify, and I've got the most boring meal plan and a very boring list, and it was sent to me. When I say boring, I'm saying it in the loving way, because it's so simple and I don't have to think about it. So I go straight to the supermarket to do that. But one thing I'm concerned about is every time I eat cream, it's been a no-no. It's like, it's going to be fat. Don't have cream and cheese. I'm having a lot of those at the moment while I'm prioritizing protein. Is there too much that you could have?
Well, we're not saying proactively add fat, and calories count, but you don't have to count calories. And so a little bit of cream in your coffee is absolutely fine,
A
and
little bit, Jamie. Is that a teaspoon? Is that a dab?
yeah, just a dash, just a dash. That's
Dash. There you go.
yeah,
So it's not a pour.
yeah, sure. And
I,
so and definitely, even this week, I've heard experts talk about when the keto diet became very successful and popular. And Ella and I, went to the States and met some of the leading keto experts, and they would add to put their body into ketosis like six satchels of butter onto their steak before eating the steak to fatten it up even further.
yeah.
And so they were going overboard with the concept. So, and that's why we say, look, if you're having really fatty meat, you don't have to add any fat. But if you're having lean meats, sure, you can add a fat syrup. Very
Okay.
simple
And
rule.
how much would you say cheese? Because I'm kind of, I love cheese, and I'm having some ricotta. Um, it's too much. Too much. Like I have one proper serving, probably a small plate, maybe half a plate. I'm having. Like,
Well, I think whatever the serving size in your plan is what you stick to. Um, and remember, we're using the concept that the true expert is your body by self-monitoring. It's sort of like, marketers and salespeople. They've got to monitor their numbers. So basically, as long as you keep a very accurate record of what you're eating, and then we're going to monitor your body's responses by your weight, your energy, how you sleep, and things like that. And so eventually you're going to end up with a plan that's built around your body, saying because your body's a true expert. And so you have double the amount of cheese and your weight loss stalls. Well, that's clear data that you've just paid for to figure out, no, that doesn't work for me. So
that's great. That's great. That little magic book of yours has been amazing. Like watching every single day, writing in it. I never realized what a test tube my body is.
excuse me. That's a fantastic phrase. What a test tube my body is. Well, I'm just plugging in my power before I lose power here. But it is a test tube for the great mystery of life, which is your body. Because you really don't care what works for other people. You only care what works for your body.
That's absolutely right. But I've never been so mindful. So this measuring has been amazing, and I am implementing all the stuff about the size of the plate, the portions of how I'm, prioritizing protein, like all those tips that are so easy. They're in the front of mind, which has been fantastic. That's what I'm loving about it.
Fantastic. Well, I think we'll be seeing less of you.
I used to say the more of me, the better, but now I'm changing it. I'm going to be a test tube.
And don't be surprised if joints feel better, physical activity becomes easier. Sleep is more restorative. You've got more energy throughout the day. You can skip a snack, skip a meal, and say, "Oh, I've been so busy, I didn't even think about it," because metabolically, your body is changing where you've got access to that stored body fat for fuel. So uh, it's an incredible freedom that you'll be gaining.
Yeah, 3 weeks out, I'm already got heaps of energy. I've started walking. I'm doing hiking now, which I couldn't do. So letting go of only 3 kilos is like it's decent for me, and I'm just keeping on going. For people with hormonal issues, women through menopause, I just the readings of the fluid has been phenomenal. It's just really brought my awareness into that area. Is that something that you're aware of when it comes to women in their 50s and how their weight loss goes?
Oh, absolutely. Because perimenopause can be 15 years prior to menopause. So it can be a long period of time, when the body is going through changes. And there is absolutely no doubt, if they can be at optimum body composition, which is, having body fat at, really healthy levels, lean muscle tissue, well toned through exercise, that the natural cycle of perimenopause and menopause is going to be so much easier for them. Everybody's going to be different, but I've seen so many women just sail through it versus some women that completely struggle through it. So, if you It's exactly the same also, with the various viruses that are around now and the viruses are going to be around in the future. People who are metabolically healthy,
Yep.
they are much better defended against these things, much better. So, all life and, the body changes through our life will be so much easier, and we end up with more life.
Absolutely. Oh, great.
Much
Well,
agreed. That was my alarm. So thank you so much, Jamie, and I'll keep watching because it's really helping. And thanks, Steve.
all right. Good.
Thanks, Micheline.
Okay. Bye-bye now. All right. Well, I think it was a bit your pounds to peanuts. There's very few men that understand the difference between the different stages of menopause. I thought that was quite interesting at the end that he was bringing that up because, maybe some younger ladies that haven't heard about it either because it's not something that's commonly spoken about. And I think
Good on her for bringing that up. Yeah.
absolutely. And the lovely thing about it was, I think what you just said at the wrap up is just be metabolically healthy, eat well, exercise well, put the natural stuff that we're supposed to be putting in our bodies. I mean, it's interesting.
There's some strawberries, by the way.
Yum. We are what we eat and drink and the people we surround ourselves with. So if we have control, if you got your hand, put it on the knife and fork, put it in your mouth. People just say, I've got to put it in my mouth. You've got a choice. And I think it comes right back down to that decision fatigue. Make simple choices, and the choices you have and the people you meet and the things you read will create opportunity for future self. I think it was a great way of putting that as a wrap up for the day, mate.
Thanks, Steve. And we're always finding that in the pathway to your future self, both health ways and the pathway to your future self in income and sales and marketing, there are very similar lessons between those two pathways, where the pathways from nutrition can apply to sales and the pathway to sales can apply to nutrition.
I think what we're doing, I'm really excited about it because I remember back many hundreds of years ago, I had this a goal that I'd love to have a health resort that actually taught people about all the exercise because I had such a strong fitness background with my clubs and stuff. And I said, I'd love to teach them communication at the same time and, teach them how to eat properly. It's funny how we now, many, many years ahead, we're now doing sales training, but we've now introduced this nutrition. And I'm very excited about it because I think people perform better when they are nutritionally sound, I think metabolically, and also exercise and having just something, just not always about sales. It's about doing other things. And if you're not healthy and well and not having other people talking about it, you can get unwell and you can be the best salesperson in the world. Unwell, I guarantee you throw every sale out of the window just to get your health back.
Definitely. That's what's the saying. The person with health has 1,000 goals. The person who doesn't have health only has one goal.
Yeah, what a wonderful thing to ponder for the rest of our week. Thanks, Jamie. Appreciate it, mate.
Steve, it's a pleasure.
Hey, gang. What a great session. Making sure we don't get into decision fatigue and understanding how to make sure there's shields there. And you've got lots of analogies today on what you can put into place. What I'd love you to do is to listen to this again. Remember, once is never enough. And pick down three that you can put into action, take action, that can make a difference to you. And guess what? If you've got a family and you start doing some stuff for you, and you start doing it for your family, less like teaching somebody else, guess what? The family will start become healthier as well. Look, everything happens with a very first step. What's your first step after today? Why don't you put it in the comments, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's in the SAC, or whether it's actually in the Sales Success Club. We're going to be posting this everywhere because I think everyone should be listening to it. Put it in a comment down the bottom. We'd love to know what you're doing. So again, thanks to Jamie, and let's think about what you do, not what you listen to. I'm Dr. J, and I'll see you soon. Bye for now.